Hello, Bolt fans, and welcome to another episode of Chargerscast. We are a fan-based podcast about everything Los Angeles Chargers. I'm your host, Kirk Brewer. I'm a San Diego native, been a Chargers fan since 1978. And as a longtime fan for over 4 decades, I'm here to bring you a unique perspective on our Los Angeles Chargers. So let's get started. Free agency and the new league year are here, and there is a lot to talk about. With Jim Harbaugh and Joe Hortiz taking charge of the Bolts, we knew things were going to be different, right? That's exactly what we were all hoping for, was that things would be different and the Chargers would stop chargering. Well, things are certainly different, and change is upon us. When Harbaugh and Hortiz took over the team, we were projected to be about $42 million over the cap. And that was after we released Sebastian Joseph Day near the end of the season after firing Staley. When the official cap finally came out and was announced by the NFL, it was higher than expected, which was a huge help for the Chargers, resulting in them being, I want to say only, but resulted in them being about $34 million over the cap. And so they still had a lot of work to do to get below that cap number before the new league year started on March 13th. So they inherited Tom Telesco's all-in mess for 2023, and it simply wasn't going to be pleasant to sort through all of that stuff. So there were 4 players that were taking up about $140 million on the 2024 cap, and that needed to be addressed by Harbaugh and Hortiz. It's Keenan Allen, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, and Khalil Mack. Each of those guys were taking up about $35 million, roughly. It's a little bit more for some, a little bit less for others, but on average, about $35 million cap hit for each one of those players for 2024, which is just untenable, unmanageable. Plus, we had Derwin James making $20 million, or maybe not making $20 million, but a $20 million cap hit, along with all his prorated signing bonuses and the whole bit. And we had Justin at a $19 million cap hit for 2024. So a lot of work that needed to be done to get us back under the cap, plus give us some wiggle room to handle free agency, the draft, etc. So the league knew the Chargers were in a vulnerable position, being so far over the cap and having so much of a cap hit tied up in those particular 4 players. So while the team was trying to entertain trade offers for those 4 players, putting feelers out, let's face it, the league, nobody's going to do you any favors. They're all out there to compete. And so apparently the Chargers did not get any offers that were worth taking, or at least worth serious consideration, because as the new league year hit, the Chargers were unable to trade any of those players for at least anything they were willing to take. Going into this, at least for me, it seemed really unlikely that the team was going to be able to keep all 4 of these players, considering their cap hits. I figured at best we'd probably be able to keep 2 of these guys. I was figuring probably Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa were going to be the 2 that would stick around. A bunch of reasons for that. Keenan, originally drafted by the team. He's steady Eddie, still doing Keenan. His game is predicated on much more skill than, physical speed, things like that. And he's just such a good route runner. And then Joey, again, an original draft pick of the Chargers. I think a lot of good years under his belt, especially if he can stay healthy. And he might have been harder to trade, quite frankly, because of his health issues. So that was kind of what I was thinking, is we'd probably be able to keep one receiver and one defensive end, that being Keenan and Joey. So just before the deadline for the new league year, where the team had to be underneath that cap, the Chargers announced the following. This would have been March 13th. Okay, that was the start of the new league year. I think it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time that was going to hit. Or maybe it's 4 o'clock Eastern time, 1 o'clock Pacific. But it was on the 13th. The Chargers outright released Mike Williams, saving a big chunk of change on the cap hit. And then they also announced they were able to restructure Khalil Mack's contract, likely adding voidable years, and with Khalil taking a not inconsequential pay cut. So those two moves got them below the cap on the 13th. Shortly after the deadline, I believe it was the following day. Don't quote me on that at this point, but I believe it was just the next day, like the 14th. Maybe it's the 15th. But the Chargers announced that they were also able to renegotiate Bosa's contract. So they restructured that. Again, I believe they added some voidable years, and Joey took a fairly sizable pay cut. And in Joey's case, now it's easy for me to say sitting here, but I've always had this perception in all the years I've been a fan, which is, and this would have been the case in Mike's case as well. When you're injured a lot, when it comes time for renegotiating your contract, the team continued to pay you while you were injured. Maybe you should be willing to consider some give and take when it comes time to renegotiate your contract for that particular team, even though you might be able to go out and get more money elsewhere. Those other teams that are willing to offer you more money now, they weren't the ones paying you while you were sitting on the bench and rehabbing all that time. So I thought it was really cool that Joey also was willing to renegotiate his contract and remain part of the Chargers and remain, be a part of this new regime. I think that may pay big dividends, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here down the line, but I think that may pay big dividends for Joey. So that was pretty cool. So that freed up more cap space for us, and giving the team, again, more wiggle room during free agency, and get all their draft picks signed, no matter how the draft goes. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here at the tail end of the podcast. Unfortunately, though, Mike was cut, and there had been the Chargers rumors, at least, that they had expressed an interest of maybe being able to bring Mike back at a lower number in free agency. But Mike was cut. They also went to Keenan about restructuring his contract and taking a pay cut. And Keenan said no. Rumor was he counter-offered. But this new regime, I don't think they were playing around. They made him an offer that worked for them, and he wasn't willing to take it, wasn't willing to take a pay cut. He wanted his money. And so it's like 24 hours later, now that they were underneath the cap and they weren't a desperate team, the Chargers had several trade partners for Keenan. And within 24 hours, they made a trade, sent him to the Bears, got a 4th-round pick, and cleared 100% of his cap hit. Disappointing to see Keenan go. Like I said, he was one of the guys I was for sure thought was going to stay. But Chargers didn't do too bad getting, a 4th-round pick in this year's draft, which is going to be a valuable pick, I suspect. It's a pretty deep draft in several positions. So we get a 4th-round pick this year, and we cleared over $30 million off the cap. And so here we sit, okay? The brain trust of Harbaugh and Hortiz have addressed these 4 players' contracts, and after signing several free agents and taking care of these 4 large contracts, the Bolts now have over $32 million in cap space to work with during free agency and to sign their draft picks. This is huge as this new regime comes in and tries to remake this team in their image. And I think we all know what that image is going to be by now. It's going to be a tough, hard-nosed, physical team. We aren't necessarily going to be that finesse team that's going to go over the top all the time on you. Regardless of what side of the line it's on, they're going to smack you in the mouth for 60 minutes. And so they need to remake the makeup of this team. Now they got over $32 million to do it. And that's after the free agents they've already signed here in the first wave, including some of their own, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. So that's pretty awesome. We knew it wasn't going to be easy and most likely not pleasant when we brought in Harbaugh and Hortiz, and they had to address some of the issues that the team had. But man, I think they did a masterful job in getting the team underneath the cap, getting us $32+ million in cap space to work with. And they retained 2 of the 4 of those star players that were grossly overpaid. So I think that was a huge win. And I think they did a great job. Now, it sucks that we've lost Keenan and we've lost Mike. But quite frankly, it was unrealistic to think that we were going to be able to keep all 4 of those guys. And considering how they want to remake the team, I don't want to say that wide receivers unimportant, because we all know Justin's going to need tools to work with, because they are going to ask Justin to do Justin stuff, but they aren't going to lean exclusively on Justin doing Justin stuff. They are going to be a downhill, smash mouth running team that once you're bleeding and you're wounded and you're kind of, disheartened a little bit, then they're going to go over the top and they're just going to crush you. Okay. You're already disheartened, and then they're just going to put that last nail right down, that last stake in your heart when they go over the top. And so they're going to need outside help. They're going to need some deep threat help. And so don't be surprised if we draft wide receiver, maybe not at 5, and we'll talk more about that. But wide receiver will be addressed. So that said, I'm really excited to see what Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and Thule are able to do together in Jesse Mentor's defense. That could be really scary. We need to get Bosa healthy, but it's my understanding that this year Bosa is going to train with Ben Herbert this offseason instead of training with his normal guy, which I believe is in Florida. Has Joey been able to stay healthy for an entire season once in his career? Maybe. I think maybe. But probably, I don't think not. I haven't researched that, but if so, it's only been one. But he's consistently missing significant amount of playing time. And it's been feet, it's been soft tissue, hamstrings, glutes, things like that. So it's my understanding he's going to train with Ben Herbert. And so since it hasn't been working real well with the guy he's been using, maybe, just maybe, this will make a difference in Joey's ability to stay healthy for a 17-game season, which would be huge. If we can have all 3 of those guys on the field at the same time. They were sacking the quarterback in the limited amount of plays last season that all 3 of those guys were on the field. They were sacking the quarterback like 25% of the time and just causing and reaping havoc the other 75% of the time. So that could be really scary in Jesse Mentor's defense if all three of those guys are healthy and playing at the same time. So let's talk a little free agency here, okay? And let's go ahead and start with our own guys. What players we were able to retain. We had quite a few free agents, unrestricted, exclusive rights, etc. So first, the first player of our own, unrestricted free agent that we were able to re-sign was Alohi Gilman. Now, this is one of the pieces I thought when I looked at our free agents at the end of last season and who was going to be an unrestricted free agent and be allowed to walk if we didn't try and re-sign him. Alohi was he was at the top of my personal list as far as need to re-sign. He and Derwin work great together. He allows Derwin the flexibility to be all over the place, come down close to the line of scrimmage. And Alohi came on super strong last season. I mean, he was a ball hawk. He was breaking up plays consistently. His range was awesome. He actually got his hands on quite a few balls. He didn't catch all of them, but he got his hands on a lot of them. And then, man, he was laying some hits last season. So he's also that enforcer over the middle that we're going to need in that defense and free Derwin up to do what Derwin does, but do it better than he did under Staley's garbage defense. So getting a little re-sign was awesome. So we've got him back to do his thing. Another unrestricted free agent that we re-signed, and I was a little surprised by this one, was Easton Stick. We brought Sticky back. I was a little surprised about this, considering, it's a new regime and the whole bit. But once you stop and think about it a little bit, it kind of makes sense. And I've always been a fan of Easton's. I think Easton's got a great attitude. He's very athletic. He's been a winner. The guy only lost 3 games in all of college. So he's used to winning. He's got a winning attitude, which is hard to teach. But when you stop and think about them bringing him back and why maybe that makes sense. Number one, he's been there as a backup, typically the 3rd string, but he's been there as a backup all 4 of Justin's years with the Chargers. Now, Easton even goes further back. He was there with Phillip. Okay, so he can actually bring a little bit of what he learned from Phillip and hopefully been transferring that to Justin, which is awesome. But I think they realized that retaining Easton was a nice security blanket for Justin as far as somebody who he trusts to be his eyes and ears on the sideline and give him feedback. And then remember, they brought back Shane Day as well. Who was the quarterback's coach under Joe Lombardi, who it's my understanding Justin absolutely loves. He's like his favorite coach of all time. So they've brought him back. So having those two there with Justin in his inner circle, I think is going to be huge. The other thing, as I stopped and thought about it, was in the offensive scheme that Harbaugh and Roman are trying to instill. It's going to be a run-first offense. It's going to have the ability, going back to kind of the Ravens days where Roman was there, where they may be doing some RPOs, run-pass options, things like that. Maybe not as much with Justin, but Stick's more than capable of running that stuff. He's exceptionally athletic, real gifted runner. I think if Justin were to miss any playing time in the offense that Harbaugh and Roman are looking to install, Stick would be a very effective backup who could come in, get some playing time, who could hold down the fort, and quite frankly, who could win some games because the game isn't necessarily dependent entirely upon him, where previously that was pretty much the whole offense. Is if Justin didn't win the damn game, we weren't winning the damn game. Okay. So it kind of makes sense. Now, Moving on to some other of our free agents, a critical, absolutely critical, not unrestricted. He was exclusive rights, so we had full rights to retain him, but absolutely critical re-signing was Dicker, the kicker. I mean, this kid's been money since we brought him in 2 seasons ago. They would have been crazy not to retain him. So they tendered an offer to Cameron Dicker, and he will be a Bolt in 2024. I mean, this kid barely, I mean, he's missed like 2 or 3 field goals in 2 years. I mean, he's money, man. And then last but not least, we also tendered an offer to an exclusive rights free agent, offensive lineman Forrest Sorrell. This guy's not being retained to be, the starting anything per se. He just provides solid offensive line depth. And then he actually plays on the line in special teams. And so he's a critical contributor there as well. So they tendered him an offer also. And then a few comments on some guys we let walk because I think they deserve some comments and acknowledgement. First and foremost, Austin Eckler. I mean, Austin's been a stud. I mean, the guy came in as an undrafted free agent, earned a spot on the team. This is a team, if you remember, that had Melvin Gordon. Melvin was supposed to be the next coming of somebody. And, man, the kid had a big head and was holding out, and the Chargers offered him a great contract, man. It was like $10 million a year for 4 years, and he didn't take it. And so they let him walk, and Austin got the contract, 4 years, $24 million, something like that. And then Austin's been, steady Eddie. He's been a decent runner, an excellent pass catcher out of the backfield, and he's been a touchdown machine. And so sorry to see him go. I think it was pretty much inevitable that he was probably going to walk this season. There was a remote chance with the new regime coming in that maybe not, but especially if the old regime had stayed. I think, he tried to renegotiate his contract last season, and they weren't really playing ball with him. And I think he became disenchanted. So combine that with the fact that he wasn't really an ideal fit for what Harbaugh and Roman are looking to do as far as between the tackles, smash you in the mouth over and over and over and over again. Not surprised that Austin was allowed to walk, and it's he signed with the Washington Redskins. And then also running back Joshua Kelly. I've always liked Kelly. I love the guy. I was really hoping that he would have a breakout season. He showed flashes at times, and he was a great team player. I mean, he just was a great team guy, great guy to have in the locker room. It always seemed, always smiling, always upbeat. I think ultimately he was just simply expendable. They didn't need to re-sign him because we have Isaiah Spiller still on the roster. And I think Spiller is very similar to Kelly, but I think he may be size and weight measurements. I think he probably fits the Harbaugh G-Row downhill running game a little bit better than Kelly. So there just simply wasn't a need to bring him back. Then we got tight end Gerald Everett. I don't think this was a loss. I mean, I don't think this guy ever lived up to expectations. I think he had all the measurables. I think he had the potential to be a beast. At least that's what I saw when I looked at the guy. But he never put up big numbers. In fact, I wish we'd kept the veteran tight end we had just before him. I'm drawing a blank. The guy had been in the league for years. Why am I drawing a blank? It'll come to me near the end of the podcast, I'm sure. But we should have kept that guy. That guy put up better numbers than Gerald Everett did. And besides, Everett's blocking sucked. Go back and watch some of the games last season. This guy missed many key blocks that resulted in plays getting blown up. Both passing plays where Herbert would end up getting blown up or chased out of the pocket and ruin the damn play, or a running play where he just missed the damn block and the running back get just nailed in the backfield. So this personally, I think this is addition by subtraction. So no love loss there. And it's my understanding Everett has joined Keenan in Chicago. So good luck. Defensive back Michael Davis. I'm a little surprised we didn't try and re-sign Vato. DBs are at a premium, and, his play can be streaky. It's up and down. But when you look at his size and his range, if nothing else, I think he would have been a good role player, a good depth player. And I don't think he was going to command massive bucks to retain the guy. But at the end of the day, they didn't see the need to retain Mike. So Kenneth Murray. It was past time to move on with this guy. Kind of enough said. Never really was hoping for him to, again, kind of break out. Never did. Yeah, that was a swing and a miss. I think this is the guy that, what's his name? Anthony Lynn had a man crush on, if I'm not mistaken. He was first round drafted under Anthony Lynn. So enough said, move on. And then last but not least, Eric Kendricks. Free agent signing last year, years and years with the Vikings, high production linebacker, tackle machine, the whole bit. I was really hoping he was going to be a difference maker in the middle of our defense when we signed him. But last season, he's kind of just so-so, But maybe that was due to Staley's horrible defense because, you could pretty much pull up any game all season long and just kind of flip a coin to pick a play on defense. Man, there was always somebody out of position. I don't know what Staley was teaching these guys, but even the best of our players, they're constantly out of position, guys missing assignments. And when you see that over and over and over again, it's not the players, it's the coach, it's the scheme. And so odds are there's more Staley than Kendricks, but the new regime simply didn't see a need to retain him. So, it's time to move on. And, again, the mold they're looking for is physical, smash you in the mouth. And I think they're looking for somebody to fill that role that was a little more physical than Eric Kendricks. So free agent signings. As we go through these, I think more than likely, you're going to pick up on a couple themes that go through these initial signings and this first wave of free agency. And again, we didn't make any shock waves. We didn't go out and sign any high tier, mega $1 million superstar players. We retained some core guys like Alohi, Khalil, Joey, Dicker, the kicker, key guy, special teams. And they kind of did the same in the first wave of free agency is, they signed non-flashy role players, which is just the way Harbaugh puts teams together. It's the best way to put it is rarely are they flashy. They're blue collar, lunch pail type of players that come together and play as a whole and just beat you up for 60 minutes. And lo and behold, at the end of the season, they won more of those close games than they lost. They're in the tournament and the other teams aren't. So let's take a peek at this. Okay. The first free agent that we signed was running back Gus Edwards from the Ravens. Again, the Bolts want to get more physical, play smash mouth football on both sides of the ball. Well, Gus, the bus, at 6'3", 238 pounds, brings that edge to our running game. Okay, this guy is a thumper, And I kind of get going back to our lone Super Bowl, I'm kind of getting a little Natron means business vibe here. So I think this is a great signing. I think we still need to add to that room, maybe one more key component. But I think Gus was a great signing. Lunch pail guy. He's going to buy in. He's going to hit you in the mouth for 60 minutes. The next signing we had was Will Dissly, free agent tight end from Seattle. Again, not a sexy signing by any stretch of the imagination, but what does Dissly bring to the table? He's tough, he's physical, and he blocks his ass off, both in the run game and in the passing game. Plus, he's a capable receiver. I mean, you just go look at some Seattle games and, the guy can get open, he can catch, and he can run. So I think this is a great signing for the team they're trying to build. And then the next signing was Hayden Hurst, free agent tight end from Carolina. Hurst is an interesting one. And again, you're going to see there's themes running through these players here. He was originally a first-round pick of the Ravens in 2018. Okay. This guy is really familiar with Greg Roman's offense. He played in it. And he embraces, go look at his interview. It was awesome. He embraces that physical dogfight, smack you in the mouth for 30 minutes, and we're going to wear you down so that if you don't quit, you're at least on your last legs, and we're going to just smack you in the mouth anyway. So this guy's a perfect fit. He's familiar with the offense, loves the mentality. This is the way the guy likes to play. And by the way, this guy was a first-round pick. Okay, this guy's got skill. This guy is a very good receiver, and once he's got the ball in his hands, he's hard to bring down. Okay, he gets some yak. So another really good signing. Really, really like this signing a lot. The next guy, never heard of this guy before, but he's got a great name. Poona Ford, free agent defensive tackle from the Bills. This guy is a massive dude, and he's very capable of defending both the run and the pass. This guy is a clog the middle kind of guy. But if you go look at some film, he can get to the quarterback up the middle. He can push the pocket back into the quarterback's face, which is awesome to have guys who can do that. By the way, we still have Morgan Fox on our D as well. Love Fox. Fox is one of those guys like Damian Square. He's one of those guys that you better just sign the dude. He doesn't take up a lot of money, and the guy's got a motor, and he just produces. Okay. So Poona's going to come in. He's going to be a role player. He'll probably be in a defensive tackle rotation kind of guy. Okay. But again, just a lunch pail kind of signing. Here's another one of those lunch pail kind of signings. Troy Dye. This guy is a free agent linebacker from the Vikings. Bottom line here, this guy was signed for special teams. Okay, he played for Ryan Fickens, our special teams coordinator when Fickens was with Minnesota. The guy became a free agent. I guarantee you, Fickens went to Hortiz and Harbaugh and said, "Love this guy. He's a great special teams role player. Great motor. Let's sign him." And so they signed this guy, and he can be, he can fill in on defense when needed in a pinch, but they signed him to be a special teams player. And don't discount special teams, especially with the new kickoff rule this year. It's going to be very, very important to have people on coverage. The next free agent signing, Bradley Boseman, free agent center from Carolina. More of the same theme. Okay, this guy was originally drafted by the Ravens in 2018. So the guy's super familiar with Roman's offense. He played both center and guard for the Ravens under Roman. And he gets that smash mouth, downhill offense. And that's what we need. We need those nasty, nasty offensive linemen that are they just want to tee off for 60 minutes. They don't care if you ever throw it. They just want to beat you up for 60 minutes. So this guy was kind of drafted into and raised in that school. Now he bounced around a little bit, but The guy's quality offensive lineman. And I wouldn't be surprised if this guy is our starting center in week 1. Now, that's going to depend on what happens in the draft and second phase of free agency. But don't be surprised if Bozeman is our starting center on week 1. And he's got experience doing it. And he's got experience doing it in Roman's offense. So he's a guy who can kind of lead our already young offensive experience, but young offensive line, and kind of lead these guys in the new way of doing things under this new offense. So I think this is a great addition. Here's one of my favorite additions of the offseason. Denzel Perryman. That's right, you heard it. Free agent linebacker from Houston. Denzel was originally a second-round pick of our Bolts back in 2015. And Perryman is back for his second stint with Bolts to start his 10th season in the NFL. When we drafted him to be that just thumper, take your head off in the middle of the defense. And for the 6 years he was here with us, he didn't disappoint at all. His biggest challenge while he was with us was staying healthy and keeping him on the field. But when he was on the field, the guy was great. Lights out, knock your head off, enforcer kind of middle linebacker. So when we didn't re-sign him originally, and it was primarily because of health issues, he ended up bouncing around a little bit. He originally went to the Panthers, then spent a couple years with the Raiders. I think he actually made the Pro Bowl one of the years with the Raiders. And then he went to the Texans last year. Had a good season with the Texans. So now he's back in the fold with us, and he's ready to bring the wood in Jesse Mentor's new defense. So imagine this: Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Thule, Derwin, Alohi, and now Denzel. This could be a scary defense, man. No matter what we have in the back on the corners, if we're chasing the quarterback and we're smacking people around in the middle, that could be a pretty scary defense. And if we've got Asante back there playing DB, and this new kid I'm going to talk about, and we add one other player to the mix on top of just Sir Taylor and the folks who are retained there, this could be a very formidable defense. So the next free agent that we signed, free agent DB from the Titans, Christian Fulton. This guy's a former second-round pick of the Titans in 2020. So he's still young. He's got a lot of tread on the tires. He's shown the ability to be a starting DB. He started a lot of games, got some good stats. His thing is he had a few injuries in his young career, but when he's healthy, he's an effective defender. So don't be surprised to see this guy in the mix as we run through training camp and head to week 1. And then last but not least is a guy by the name of Ben Mason. This one was most recent, just last week, I believe it was. And this one probably, falls underneath the radar a little bit. This guy's a free agent fullback / tight end, I think primarily fullback, from the Ravens. He's a former Wolverine, Michigan Wolverine, and a former Raven. So again, along that theme, some Harbaugh ties, some Hortiz ties, some Jesse Mentor ties, some Greg Roman ties. So the guy's bounced around a little bit since he was a 5th-round pick of the Ravens in 21, but he's that type of hard-nosed physical player that fits what Harbaugh and Greg Roman are looking for. I mean, I look at him as like the prototypical role player that epitomizes Jim Harbaugh teams, right? He's just lunch pail, come to work every day, and we're going to smack you in the mouth. So some really, really good signings, nothing glamorous, nothing flashy, but building depth and core with the right attitude that the training team is trying to build. So I think it's been a successful entry into free agency. We got under the cap, did the best we could to manage the 4 players that were really gobbling up just an inordinate amount of cap space. We were fortunate enough to retain 2 of those guys with Bosa and Mack, and get substantial cap savings along the way, and sign some quality free agents. And still, after doing that, still have like $32 million to play with in free agency and to sign our draft class. So that's where we're at right now. That's the state of the Bolts at this point, as we're in the first wave of free agency. The next waypoint in the off season is going to be the draft, which is exactly 3 weeks away. And so that's going to be exciting. Forgot to mention, you guys already know this anyway, I'm sure, if you're diehard Chargers fans, but on April 2nd, 2 days ago, most players reported to the new training facility for the voluntary off-season program. So they got to get a good chunk of players, not 100%, but a good chunk of the players, and it was voluntary, and start, interacting with them, doing some baseline physical testing, introduce them to Ben Herbert, which is huge. And so that was pretty cool, pretty exciting. Harbaugh, of course, was just pumped to start interacting with the players officially. The guy's infectious, man. He's awesome. He's like a kid in a candy store. So it was really, really cool. And then, the draft's 3 weeks away. 3 weeks from today, Thursday, the 25th, is round 1. You don't want to miss it. There are, all those mock drafts. There's speculation all over the place as far as what's going to happen with the first 4 picks that are ahead of the Chargers. As far as, what quarterback needy team might trade up to the 4th or our 5th pick to take a quarterback. I'm not real big on draft speculation. Do I think about it? Yeah, but it's all speculation until it happens, right? And so I try not to speculate a whole lot. We know there's options that could transpire. The Chargers don't control their own fate per se. When I say that, I mean, I suspect they would prefer to trade back if they could and get more draft picks. It's a deep draft in offensive linemen, wide receivers. We have a lot of positions that we need to fill, and they'd like to fill those with young, up-and-coming players on rookie contracts. So my hunch is they would prefer to trade back versus take that marquee wide receiver, i.e. Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. But we need to know what's going to happen in front of us. And specifically the pick number 4 right in front of us, which is the Cardinals. Everybody's speculating the Cardinals don't want to take a quarterback because they've got that midget dude, Murray. And I think they think they're happy with him. So that's awesome. And so are they going to let somebody trade up to number 4 who needs a quarterback and move back? Or will they trade or will they take the best available player, i.e. Marvin Harrison Jr., which would be a really great pick for that team since they don't need a quarterback. So a lot of things have to play out for us to know, what the Chargers options are. And so it's going to be good TV, man. Round 1 especially is going to be really exciting. We're up there at the very top of it. You don't want to miss it. This draft is an important draft, right? It's the first draft under Harbaugh and Hortiz, and this draft is going to set the stage for the Chargers for the next several years to come. This is a huge, important draft, so I'm not going to miss it. I don't think you guys should miss it either if you're a diehard Chargers fan like I am. What are Jim and Joe going to do with their first draft at the helm of the Chargers? don't want to miss it. And you definitely don't want to miss the press conferences after their selections. So it's going to be here before you know it. It's just 3 weeks away. Well, that's it for this episode of Chargerscast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'd love to get your comments, get your questions. I try to respond to all of them. And if I can, I would like to respond to a few of them on air. If there's some good questions out there, just as part of the podcast, wrap those questions or comments in. You can always email me as well if you don't want to just leave a comment or a question below at chargerscast@gmail.com. That's chargerscast@gmail.com. And also be sure to like and subscribe below. Very, very important for the life of our channel that you like and subscribe. Not to mention, when you subscribe, you get notifications when each episode drops. So appreciate you guys being here and tuning in. I'm Kirk Brewer, and this is Chargerscast.